Good evening, everybody, and welcome to SPMinar, the Society of Prop Managers webinar series for live theater prop professionals. I'm Jen McClure, SPAM member and prop supervisor for the Yale Rep Theater and the David Geffen School of Drama at Yale. The Society of Prop Managers, formerly and affectionately known as SPAM, was formed in 1994 by a small group of prop professionals in the Midwest to address issues of common importance and to create parity with other production departments. Today, we are an association of 150 plus professional prop managers and educationals from not-for-profit producing organizations, opera companies, and educational institutions. We've built an international communication and support network that shares resources, information, solutions, and techniques, as well as safety information, continuing education, and our stocks. As with previous SPMinars, we are requesting pay what you can donations to help support this programming and our annual grants for early career prop professionals. If you can afford to donate, links to donate will be in the chat, and we truly appreciate any help that you can give. We've enabled live transcripts for this webinar, and if you'd like to use them, click on the live transcript button at the bottom and then select Show Subtitles. Alternatively, you can click View Full Transcript to see it in the meeting side panel. I'm joined tonight by SPAM members Lara Musard and Deb Morgan, as well as theater safety expert Kristi Ross-Clausen to talk about how we can work safer and smarter as we build props with the goal of prolonging our working careers and having a higher quality of life when we're not working. Please put any questions that you may have in the chat. We'll ask them of the group at the end during our Q&A session. And with that, Lara, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Jen. I'm Lara. I use she, her pronouns. I've been in the business of making, shopping, and borrowing props for almost 20 years. So I would consider myself a mid-career prop manager, as it seems most of our registrants are as well. I'm here as a person who's a huge fan of the prop community. I mean, like, we can rule the world. I know that you all know that. And I'm also here as a person who loves herself. And I'm always curious on how I could love myself better. I'm feeling a lot of gratitude to be part of this chat with Deb and Kristi. And I just really quickly also want to thank Stacy Horn-Harper, the TD for the SPMinar, and Jen McClure, the moderator, and Natalie Kearns for putting together our slideshow, and everyone else in membership who helped shape the SPMinar. I'm going to put the link for the slideshow in the chat because there's a lot of information here. And I don't want to waste anybody's time with my just reading through it all. Okay. So with this SPMinar, what we hope to do, excuse me, is to create a space for discussion, and also to empower folks to open this discussion with their respective organizations. This is so current membership and future membership can lengthen their shelf lives and not come out of this profession with a pile of physical therapy bills or worse. I recently found the urgency in opening this discussion after my own realization that as a department of one, even if I had a team of 5, they're not going to be henchmen whose job it is to carry my stuff around. And anyway, it's not fair for any human person to not be able to do their job through retirement because of lack of advocacy or support. But I didn't know where to start advocating for myself. I mean, I have things like a respirator and furniture dollies, and I wear better shoes than I used to, but there is a ton of stuff out there. Researching it on top of living life and doing my job just felt very overwhelming and kind of oppressive. And I wondered if other folks in membership had the same problems. So we put together a survey. And I'm going to share my screen. Is that coming through for everyone?
Yep, looks good.
Thank you. It's just a little pie chart of when we should put safety first. So it was honestly a little alarming and also inspiring to learn that the majority of members who responded to this survey do not feel like their organization prioritizes their well-being. You can see the minority is yes, that they do. And that there are a lot of folks who developed physical characteristics that limit the work that they can do. And I really invite everybody to go through this and read a lot of this input. It made me really sad for everybody, and it made me really want to again lift up this subject for those just starting out and those who've been in, you know, or mid-career or later in their career. This is just some more feedback. We see back and neck injuries. We see people who don't get compensated without a doctor's note. We see surgery, reconstructive surgery, and a lot of out-of-pocket treatment for these ailments. And we also learned that a lot of folks have not been given training. A lot have, which is great, but training doesn't seem to be a standard for the majority of folks that we received feedback from.
Yet in the United States, OSHA requires that employees, and as far as I know, all of us are employees, unless you're volunteering in some situation or you're a student, OSHA requires training on many different topics annually for employees. And one of the things that's on that list is how to carefully lift things, how to use ladders, mobile aerial work platforms. There's a whole long list of things, chemical use, SDS, all of those kinds of things are in there. So one of the things I've added to the slideshow is this. The Ladder Safety Training Institute has free safety training available. You go in, you register, and you get access to 4 different videos. And I realized I didn't put on here that I should have put on here is another free safety training that's available. It's just kind of general theater safety from the National Federation of State High School Associations, and I will add that to the chat. But do know that the employer is required by law, by OSHA standards in the US, to provide training to help keep you safe. But most of them don't know that they're required to do this because theater and OSHA are finally just now starting to talk to one another.
Wow, thanks, Kristi. And another big challenge that we're seeing is, excuse me, I just want to get this last in here. Another big challenge that we're seeing from folks that responded to the survey was that funds are kind of stonewalling. The bottom line is stonewalling folks from getting safety equipment. There's a lot of non-regulated financial systems in place, which can make advocating for safety equipment funding feel kind of nebulous. Like, where is it coming from? You can see here that a lot of folks, everybody, well, not everybody, but a lot of folks have different answers to where in the budget safety equipment is coming from, and does not appear to be standardized. And, you know, the thing is, even with all the funding in the world, there's just so much out there. And I really was just longing for some kind of database that I can just search like best equipment to minimize back injury, and then have all of these wonderful things come up. And we're not really there. We're not really there yet. But I mean, there are many prop professionals among us who we can learn from. And since learning from each other is what we do, this is a really great place to start. So I'm happy to say that as I've been going down this road of self-advocacy and safety, I've learned that people who know a lot about this stuff love talking about it. and so we have 2 of those folks here with us who know far more about this than I do. and I'm just here to learn from them too. I would like to first introduce SPAM member Deb Morgan, who you learned earlier is mostly retired but still kicking ass as freelancing. She's a SPAM celebrity. She's been around forever and ever. That's not to say anything less than she just knows her ish. So she has had some experiences in the past at things that she wished that she knew, and when she was more early career, and some of the strategies in which she's trying to correct that now. So off to you, Deb.
Thank you. I started my career at what was the Missouri Repertory Theater. So I was an actual employee, and I had a crew of 2 other people. We were young, healthy, and did everything. We hauled props. Our shop was behind the theater, so we didn't really have to do all that much, except that all of our props were stored on a different location. So we had a flatbed truck, and we could put things on a truck that had a lift. So we had it pretty good over there. But as time went on, I worked there for 16 years. I left there and started working for the Lyric Opera here in Kansas City. And that was a whole different ballgame. I was a prop person of 1. They'd never had a full-time prop person before. I worked with a union crew. And at first, I was a little overwhelmed because suddenly I didn't have a crew to do anything. I had to do everything myself. I guess I made a good impression on the union crew because I hauled all my crap out of my van and made multiple trips and didn't ask for help. And once they realized I was pretty self-sufficient, they started helping me. So I was there for almost 26 years, and I had a dream job. The guys came out, hauled everything in. It was their job to take all the furniture and all the props, which we put into prop boxes or whatever, the last rehearsal hall, take it over to the theater, unload it, set it up. I mean, it was great. Once I decided to retire from that, I decided I was decided I was going to help out some of the smaller theaters. And suddenly I found myself thrust back into the old days of using my van to pick up all the stuff, hauling everything in, asking friends and everybody to help me because there was just no one to help. And I was at the age where I just couldn't do it anymore. And to try to pull teeth to some of the other people that were working there, I mean, they all had their own jobs too. But I finally just had to quit. I mean, I have a variety of rolling cases, rolling boxes. I have things to put things in. I don't carry much. I roll everything. This is my rolling toolbox on the left. On the right is my carrier case. It fits exactly behind the seat of my van. It's 8 foot wide and only 2 foot deep, and you can take everything out, lift it pretty easily into the back of my van. I can then tie it to the back seats, put everything back in. When I get there, I do the reverse. We had a ramp. I could haul things up the ramp or get the guys to help me. It was pretty easy. But now going back to, hauling stuff in, it was a nightmare. I mean, I basically aged out of the job because I fought plantar fasciitis. I have hand problems. I had surgery on my hand during the pandemic, which, hey, one of the big benefits of the pandemic, I could recover from that. But there are consequences. You can see down on the left, there's a rubber mat there. I have rubber mats everywhere in my shop at home on the basement floor. Anything you can do now, oh my gosh, will help you later. And I don't know how you can overcome the simple fact of your back gets old, your arms ache, your hands ache, just because you've been working with your hands and working physically for all your life. And it's fun, but there comes a time when I'm really careful about the jobs I take now because I'm not hauling crap anymore. I'm just not doing it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I am. I'm lucky enough to be old enough to be able to get Medicare and to get Social Security, so I can pick and choose the jobs I still want to do. And I'm really lucky because I know there's a lot of people that aren't that lucky physically that have lasted that long and that can now sort of take the jobs that they want. So I'm very grateful for the life that I've had, and I'm enjoying it now. I guess that's about
Wow.
all I got to say to start with.
Thanks, Deb. Does anybody have any questions for Deb? Or shared experiences? I can't see everybody, so I'm counting on Jen.
I don't see any questions yet, but I just want to say that these X-frame carts are like magic. Oh, Vivi has a question about students. Yeah, if you want to either put it in the chat or you're welcome to unmute if you'd like to ask in person.
Yeah, these carts are great. The one on the bottom left here has a little handle in the middle, and you pull it up and it folds flat, and you just stick it right in your car. I use that one all the time for everything.
Yeah.
And then any fold up boxes, anything that's fold up, anything you can pull behind you, grab upstairs, pull upstairs is the best.
They're incredible.
I'm going to jump in.
Our question, sorry, is there a way for to get a college to make it safer for students?
Yes, yes, there is. There is a misnomer that OSHA does not apply for students, and it's true that students are not covered because OSHA only covers employees, but I guarantee you, any place you have students, there are people who are employees. So all of the same rules that have to apply when you've got an employee need to apply when you have students. And in case there's an incident with one of your students where they get hurt, the first thing the court's going to look at is, what are the standards for the activity that the student was involved with? Were those standards followed? Standards, the ESTA standards, Event Safety Alliance standards, all of those are put together by smart people like you and I who say, this is how we know it's best done, and we want our fellow people in the theater industry to do it that way also. So yes. Here's the problem. Colleges don't always understand that, and they don't always have the easy funding. And sometimes we try to solve these problems using very complicated things. Falls off the edge of stage are really quite common, and it's scary how common they are. And there are many simple, effective things that you can do to make the edge of the stage more visible. In props, we're oftentimes dealing with chemicals. So there's an SDS for all of the chemicals that we've got. Those SDS sheets will tell you exactly what you need to do to handle those things safely. You simply do that. And most of them are, you need a respirator, you need gloves, you need to handle it in such a way, store it such a way. All of that stuff is there in writing. The incentive for the college to do it is, if they don't and they lose a lawsuit, they're going to lose a lot of money, they're going to lose a lot of respect, and they're also going to potentially lose a student. And nobody wants that to happen. So yeah, and I help colleges figure that out, because sometimes it takes somebody from the outside giving them a phone call or sending a letter saying, hey, I understand this is going on in your shops. This is not what the standard says. You'll want to re-examine this.
Yeah, that, and
Gosh.
we put so much faith in our organizations, whether they're educational organizations or professional theaters, to take care of us and tell us what we need to be doing. Oh, do I need to go? I have to go take my CPR training. So just tell me when that is and I'll go do it. But this information is not something that's often offered because a lot of folks don't know about it. So it really is up to us to educate ourselves and speak up.
I see a hand raised from Allie.
Sorry, I have a comment about getting universities and schools to pay for things that I just don't need it to be written down. I don't need to be traced as a troublemaker, but almost every university has a risk management department, and you need to ask your risk management department to sit down and chat with you. And I guarantee you, your risk management department would love to talk to you, because there is a misnomer that if you receive a certain kind of education or you provide a certain sort of training, that you are then liable if anything goes wrong. And that is not true. Good Samaritan laws are extremely lenient towards people who are trying to do good. I work for a university, but frequently I find the phrase that I think we should talk to risk management, see what they have to say, because I'm not sure that this type of theater is theater we can be proud of. And I don't know if these procedures are something we can be proud of teaching our students. And I think we should see if there's more money. But honestly, every time I have ever spoken to environmental health or safety or risk management, they are on my side fully. And I encourage you to speak to them. And you can find my email in spam if you want to chat to me further about making people do things that they don't want to do, but they should do.
And that also
Yeah, Ellie.
that also goes for freelance people too, because the first thing I ask if they want me to work in their shop is I ask, am I covered by insurance? If I hurt myself here, or if something happens and I get hurt, will I be covered? And if I'm not covered, it's pretty much illegal. But I am covered. I just want to make sure that I am, and that they know that I am. I haven't had any incidences, but you know, if you are a freelancer, it's good to check that out ahead of time.
You know, and I heard it from Kristi, I heard it from Deb, I heard it from Allie. There's rights, there's insurance for if something happens, but you know, what do we need? How do we know what we need before we need it? You know, how do we know what we need before we've got the carpal tunnel, before we've got the knee surgery?
I have the career that I have because I had a really good physical therapist who taught me how to take my, quote, inherently off balance body, unquote, and do the things I need to do frequently in my job. So I typically work in the lighting department. I'm picking up a couple of lights and a bunch of big cables. He helped me find where the center of gravity is in my body and how to carry those heavy things in a way that I'm using the body mechanics of this very curvy feminine body to its advantage, because my strength is in my pelvis. For most men, their strength is in their upper shoulders. So having a good PT that can help you learn how to use your body mechanics in a way that's going to help you to remain healthy is a great way to do this. We're tiptoeing around this, but the science that we're talking about is called ergonomics, how the human body interacts with mechanics, machines, and the things that we do. And there are things like we've already mentioned, having good shoes that have good support, using wheels when you can use wheels. Those are good ergonomic things too. But I really think a great PT can save a career, because it did mine.
Boy, I'm all about the physical therapy now. I found mine too late, but boy, you saved my feet. Just by having someone watch you, how you're walking, how you're picking things up, how you're moving has made an incredible difference in my life. And you know, physical therapy just isn't that expensive. Almost, if you have the minimum kind of health insurance, it will cover physical therapy. I am now a convert. I will go to them all the time. So thank you for also bringing that up, because they are so knowledgeable about your body.
We have a question in the chat quick, since we're on the subject, about talking to your doctor or a physical therapist to get them to understand and support and just not tell you to change careers.
A good slap.
We're not telling them to change careers, and doctors end up with some of the same things. You know, hand injuries because of repetitive motions for surgeons is a pretty common thing. And also feet, because they're on their feet a lot. So you go in and say, hey, I love the job that I do. I want to be able to keep doing it. How do I keep myself healthy so I can continue to do it? And here's the other thing. If the doctor doesn't help you, find a different doctor. Pretty much everybody that I've seen on this list, perhaps everybody I've seen on this list, we're all women, and those male doctors don't always want to listen to us. Find somebody who will listen to you. Maybe give them free tickets to come see a show. I had a chiropractor who actually came up to my spot booth to see how I was wrapped around the follow spot, to figure out why I was having problems with my shoulder. See if you can get them backstage and show them what you're doing. Take them to the shop and show them around. People are fascinated by what we do anyway, so a little TLC on that can help them to understand why we want to keep doing the job we love.
Offer them tickets and they'll do anything.
That's great advice. And it leads my mind, though, to the next roadblock that I feel like people are dealing with, and that's the cost of being safe. So a lot of folks are spending out of pocket to go to PT in order how to learn how to not age out of their job. Where, you know, if you're working as, I don't know. I'm totally drawing a blank at every other career that exists, apparently.
Would it help you feel better if you knew that we're not the only career that's talking about this? I was a
Yeah.
teacher for a long time, and teachers have problems with their lungs because of the dust in the classroom. Things aren't cleaned very well. They have problems with their feet. They have problems with their urinary tract because they're not allowed to go to the bathroom when they have to go to the bathroom. Each individual has their own particular physical needs, and you got to take care of yourself. What I love about this is you're advocating to take care of your own personal safety, and then you get your team, you get your chiropractor, you get your PT, you get your general practitioner, whoever you need to help you to get the resources that you need in order to be able to keep going on. We know that keeping physically active is helpful. We know, and I can tell you this because I broke my ankle a year ago and I spent 6 weeks flat on my back. It took me a long time to finally be able to walk long distances. I'm just finally now getting to that point. But it was a good PT, a doctor, and a lot of time and working through that. You know, like Deb was saying about COVID, I had a chance to actually heal. Give yourself time to heal. Nobody's going to be, we're adults, right? Mom's not going to come and say, you go lay down there for a while. You're not fully rested yet. We've got to take care of ourselves, and helping each other with the information is a good part of that.
Well, you know, what just came to mind were other careers. So highly physical careers like professional sports or professional dancers. You know, there's people on staff who tend to all of those medical needs, who in physical therapists who tell them the best way to handle their body while they're doing their job. And those professionals are not paying out of pocket to get that advice. And you know, that's something that I've kind of struggled with lately, is thinking about, okay, yes, I understand I can do all of this, but I'm doing all of this in order to keep my job through retirement. So why am I paying for it? And I don't know that there's obviously, I don't know that Kristi, you have an answer for that necessarily. But does anybody share that feeling? And is this something that's come up before in your experience?
I'm walking through the theater, which also houses the ballet, and they have a special room called massage and physical therapy. So, I mean, ballet companies have them on staff. They have a massage therapist on staff. You know, so there is a certain genre of jobs that they consider physical enough to supply that. But in our job, since we're behind the scenes, aren't necessarily considered that important to do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
If they're already on staff, you might be able to see the same PT, athletic trainer, whoever that the company already has available. I know that's been occasionally available to crew members. Also consider, though, the careers that you've just listed are ones that people generally stop when they're in their 30s. And we want to be able to go a whole lot longer than that. You know, I'm trying to think of the name of the woman. She's a professional swimmer who retired from the Olympics and then went back, and she wrote a book about it, and it was explaining how she needed to treat her body differently in her 40s than she did in her 20s. It took a lot longer for her to get the rest that she needed in order to be able to compete again. And she had massage people who came to her house after every workout. And some of this is just the price that you pay to do the job that you're doing, right? If I'm a lawyer, I need to pay to do my ongoing education. If I'm a teacher, I need to pay to do my ongoing education. Well, part of doing jobs backstage in theater is keeping ourselves in shape. And part of it's just the cost of being in that industry.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was just processing. I was just letting that settle for a second.
Yeah.
But then looking towards actual safety equipment. So moving on to requesting from your organization that they purchase these things, these wonderful things that we're looking at here, all of these great things. And a lot of times people come up against the stone wall. Well, it's, you know, the bottom line is a problem. You can't get the money that you need for it. Has anybody had any experience advocating for themselves through that, or some tools that can be used to kind of push that problem along behind you?
Sometimes I can sort of sneak something in on my budget on a particular show. If they don't have the money for safety equipment, then It's something necessary that we have to do in order to do the job. So I just put it in my budget. You shouldn't have to do that, but sometimes that's a way around.
Well, sure, we put like hot glue sticks in there when we don't exactly need it for the, all of them for that
Right.
project.
But I really like this portable roller ramp. Oh my gosh,
It's
that's
my new favorite thing, and it's very light.
wow.
And you can make it longer because the one I got's too short, so I had to learn about it. But you could attach different links to it. It's got a little strap that it wraps up that you can carry it with.
How much was it, if I may ask?
I think it was like 500 to 700, depending on the length. I got it on Amazon.
That's very cool.
And speaking of a list, I learned that there is a list of resources. I learned that Amazon has, oh boy, I'm forgetting the name of it. Wait, excuse me 1 second. I know I have it written down here. Amazon affiliates. So you can create like you can create a list on Amazon for your organization, and you can ping or add items that are useful. So, with SPAM, we do, when we have our conferences, we do the resource sharing. I think that it's a version of that, but it can be for supplies or this safety stuff. And I would love to see in the future something like that where I can say, how do I, what is the thing for my back? And I'm like, magically all of the best things appear.
So does that mean you
Yes.
create a list of things on Amazon that you're looking for? And then if it matches up with an item, they'll let you know? Is that how that works?
I don't think it's quite as advanced as a match, but you can organize it under categories. So if SPAM became an affiliate, we could create categorized lists of resources that we found that work to our benefit.
Huh.
It's so interesting that you're saying this because it's in the works. And Liz even commented here that they're probably going to announce it at the conference, but it's in the works of putting together a bunch of links that we at least share that we can work with.
That's great.
That's really great.
And
Because the
depending upon
idea is,
I was going to say, it's depending upon your individual situation. Some of this might be justifiable under the American with Disabilities Act. So employers are required by federal law in the US to provide reasonable accommodations. And if you go to the employer and say, I need a $500 ramp, an employer's going to have a hard time saying, no, that's not reasonable.
Deb laughs.
One thing I found too is that if someone like me says we need this roller ramp, it may not be something that the union guys have asked for. They're maybe in their 40s, but boy, they sure appreciate that I asked, and they will use it often. They really appreciate it too. I think, I don't know how other unions work, but I know the guys around here are constantly trying to appear macho so that they get the next job, because if they appear weak and if they're looking like they're aging out, they cover up all aches and pains because they won't work then. They won't be called into work. And it's a really sad situation, I think, because they work in pain often. I see their smirks or their grimaces when they turn their backs. The poor guys.
Which goes to another part of the industry that's problematic, which is most of us don't have the ability to take paid time off. So oftentimes those IA guys have to work because there's no income if they're not working.
Does anyone have any more questions or comments? Right now, a little question break.
Nothing super big. There's been a couple of comments just about mentioning about rakes and working on rakes, and that often the actors get physical therapy when they're working on a rake, but what about all the crew that that has to work on that rake to load that set in. So again, just advocating for you and your department, I think is a big one. But mentioning, just throwing that out into the world. And just someone also had mentioned like timing requests of safety materials before the budget review. So that they, you kind of have to know that schedule so that you can ask for things before those new budget reviews come up. Oh, and then we have a new question. Can I lock out, tag out a piece of dangerous equipment without authorization from a boss if they're refusing to do it themselves?
Yes, if you know something is unsafe, you have a duty of care to keep other people from using it. Yes. I'm guessing it's not a saw stop table saw?
They're mentioning a very dangerous table saw, but yeah, maybe not maybe not a saw stop.
Yeah. Yes, that's a generally not a difficult repair to make, but it needs to be repaired. And yes, a lockout tagout would be suitable for that. Okay, that's a lawsuit waiting to happen. And they would lose if they know that there's a problem with a tool and it caused an injury. They would definitely lose that. I shouldn't say definitely. They would most likely lose that. Actually, they'd most likely settle out of court.
Wow. Yeah, so our mentioning in the comments are saying a lot of students don't know about lawsuits. I'm an older student, so I would totally sue. And a lot of the younger folks don't know that's an option. But certainly the higher ups don't want to necessarily hear that either.
No, nobody wants to deal with a lawsuit on either side of it because it's time consuming, it's money consuming, and you feel crappy when you're dealing with them. But sometimes that's the only way you can get people to do what they need to do. And when you have been injured, you have a right to be made whole. And you should be made whole because somebody did something really horrible and it caused you pain. So I'm concerned that this is in a school and this hasn't been changed over to be a saw stop, and there's tools that are there that are not being properly maintained. And here's the other thing I'm finding a lot. I do a lot of work with schools, and so often teachers just don't know that they don't know, and they don't have 85 hours in a day in order to do all the things they're being expected to do. We run into that on the prop side too, where I need you to get this from Timbuktu, and then, oh, I don't like the gilding on that. I want it to be silver instead. And you just don't have enough hours in the day to do all the things that you're being asked of. So sometimes you just have to say no, and that's really hard because we want to say yes.
I'm going to put Kristi's website in the chat as a resource for support.
Yeah, I'm happy to write letters. I'm happy to make phone calls. I'm happy to counsel as best I can. I know some good attorneys. I know some not so good attorneys. Hopefully it never gets to that point, but sometimes it's just having the right resources to take to the powers that be and say, this is why you need to do what you need to do.
Yeah, there's someone mentioning that they were freelancing at somewhere and had an injury there. Do you have any recommendations for if you're not a permanent employee, how you can help with that?
Well, there's a really cool thing we have, and it started in Wisconsin, where I'm from, called workers' comp, but that generally only is usable when you are an actual employee. Otherwise, it goes to the regular tort courts for the lawsuit, unless the company that has caused you the pain due to their negligence doesn't automatically say, oh, we'll take care of that for you. The smart companies will say, we'll take care of that for you, and everybody goes their merry way. It's freelancing at a school, and schools, depending upon if it's a K-12 school or university, the K-12 schools for the most part have a $5 million liability policy, and individual teachers will have $1 million through their union. The NFHS thing that I posted earlier, I tell people who are volunteering in schools to get that because it comes with a $2 million liability policy if you become an NFHS member. You don't have to be a member to take that class, but if you're an NFHS member and you take the class, you get a $2 million policy to back you up. Yeah, and putting together a list would be great. Unfortunately, in the US, the laws get involved because there's some big money to be made too. And nobody should go to work and get hurt. That's what it all comes down to. Accidents are going to happen, small things are going to happen, but there really shouldn't be big things anymore. Canada has similar laws for most things, depending upon which province you're in. Students that won't use the supplied PPE. So students that don't use the PPE don't get to do the tasks. It's that simple. You just test them on it and tell them you don't get to play until you do it. And if you're not going to do it right, you're not going to pass the class. And that has nothing to do with being in Canada or the US. That has to do with being a teacher. Depending upon the age of your students, in the US, and there's a similar verbiage for it in Canada. In the US, it's called an in loco parentis duty of care. We have the same duty of care to our students under the age of 18 as their parents do to their health and safety. And that's beyond the normal duty of care to act the same or similarly as other reasonable people would do in the same set of circumstances. So depending upon the age of the students you're dealing with, I'm assuming, Selena, I'm assuming college. I'm not sure if all provinces are 18 for age of majority, if there's 21 up there, but it doesn't matter. You're a teacher. You get to make the rules for the classroom. You don't want anybody getting hurt. You don't want to clean up the blood. You say you're going to do these or you're not going to do the task. And if you don't do the task, you're going to fail. That's simple. And if you want me to talk to them, I do that too. Yes, and being dressed appropriately is part of that. Don't come in with flip-flops and shorts to be working with the table saw. Not a good idea.
You know, something that's so simple, in any organization, I volunteer at like a dog sanctuary, and I hurt myself. It wasn't any of the dog's fault. And they didn't even have a medical kit with a Band-Aid there. I mean, it's such a simple thing to do. I think most of the big theaters and places that I work always have big, you know, lots of supplies and stuff. But some of the smaller organizations you volunteer for, I really read them the Riot Act and said, you got to at least have Band-Aids here. I mean, you have all these dogs that you have volunteers working around, you have to at least have Band-Aids. And I think I scared them a little bit, and they have a medical kit now. But I mean, that's such a simple thing to have around. Kind of crazy.
And Deb, I feel like that goes back to this trust that we have that folks are doing the right thing and taking care of the people that are coming under their roofs. And like Kristi said, sometimes they don't know that they don't know. But that's, again, why it's so important to advocate for ourselves. And it's overwhelming. It could be overwhelming. There's a lot of categories there. Like I started making this list, this slide that I have up right now, like how do I hack away at this to make sure that I'm covered and not relying on somebody else to tell me what I need to do and when I need to do it. And I pulled this up because, I mean, you might have seen me, I've been adding stuff as folks have been talking, but yeah, I'd love to hear it from anybody about anything that might be useful. One of the things that I found very overwhelming is that while there are a lot of places have the safety manuals, the safety handbooks, it doesn't really include all of the things that could, you know, hurt you, and what to do to stay safe. So you could be missing out on half the information, but that doesn't mean that you need to rewrite the safety handbook. It just means maybe learning about the things that aren't included and adding to it yourself somehow.
You know, there's something I found that's been really helpful to me. And as far as an item of clothing, I had some complications after my foot surgery, and I ended up going on blood thinners for a while, which is really nasty if you get, I mean, it just is, I have absolute proof on how clumsy I am. With every bruise, if you have even the slightest little cut, it gushes. But I found these sleeves, and they make them for gardeners that you can work outside. They're SPF, and they're also helpful to protect your arms. And they are wonderful. A lot of them are cooling sleeves, so they're not that hot. So if you perspire, they fit like a skin. And if you're not that, as you sweat then and a breeze hits over them, they cool you down. So they are, I highly recommend these. There are a variety of sleeves. Some of them are just for sun protection, which is terrific, and some of our have more heavy duty that protect you from hitting yourself and hurting yourself. If you have someone that's accident prone, those might be like a really good thing to have around in your shop.
Jen, is there anything in the chat that we feel like we should lift up for this list?
Let's see. So, just a lot of comments. Viv just put one in there. So I think for students, it would be great to have more one-on-one supervision, teaming up with experienced students and not necessarily just a TD. Colleagues can really look into creating a safety program based solely on safety. I dumped in there a link to those arm sleeves. I have a brand or a pair from a brand called Farmers Defense, which are amazing, and they even show on the website like scratching your arms with a yard rake and it not tearing. They're pretty incredibly wonderful. Liz also lifted up a little bit ago, just making sure the shop is providing a safety orientation for students before they're doing that, and then teaching them what they should be doing. So that's just another thing to lift up. And we've got about 10 minutes left. So if you want to show whatever you have left from your slides, Lara, and then we could go back to seeing everyone's lovely faces.
Well, this was the last one, and I'm going to close the screen, but if anybody has anything in terms of what they found useful in any of these categories, I can certainly add it in. So the chat is still available for that. There was one other thing I had a question about. There's so much information coming in, which is incredible. But this is why we need, we need it all in one place. Oh, I just wanted to say this. Okay, it's this. Y'all, I hired movers. I had a big furniture show and I had to borrow stuff from different folks because I didn't have a lot of money for it, as we all find ourselves in that situation. But it was ridiculous, the amount of furniture that I had to accumulate. And when it was time to strike, I was like, I'm not doing that again. I'm not doing that again. So I just got, I just Googled some movers and I hired movers, and off went my stuff, and it arrived home safely. And the people who lent it to me didn't have to struggle to help to put it back. It just was done. And it really, I think that it was 2 stops they had to make within Chicago. So they're probably about like 10 or 20 minutes away from my theater. And I think all in all, it was about, with tip, maybe like $550, something like that, which sounds like a lot, but if you're budgeting it in, thinking ahead, this was a great, I thought that I was very proud of myself. I was very proud of myself for that one. Like, you just get the professionals to do it. Okay. All right. I will stop the share unless anybody has anything that's got to go in this right now.
We have a next question. Just as a professional, what recourse is there if you're threatened to be fired for reporting to OSHA?
I'm going to get the link for it. There's an OSHA whistleblower complaint form, and that goes to OSHA also. And they come and investigate, and your employer will not be happy if that happens.
Pop this link in there too.
And here's the other thing, because we do a lot of freelance work and we do a lot of repetitive short-term employment work. If you find that a company's being a real jerk to work for, let folks know they don't want to work for that company. Use the fact part of it. Don't say, I felt this way, but say, this was the fact, this is what happened, document the facts, and let folks know, because none of us want to be working for people that are going to jerk us around. There's enough other great companies that we can be spending our time and efforts with, especially when none of us are making $1 million doing this.
I just saw Hannah's comment in the chat, having trouble with freelancing, always being in a different place. And I know that Deb just walked us through some of the tools for that. Just having your kit And in so many ways, it feels like freelancing is easier to empower yourself because it is just you. You know, you're not relying on the organizations to provide these things for you. You have to kind of come as a whole package. Yeah, I'd like to be
Yeah,
the whole
except you never
package.
know. My worry is always that I didn't bring what I needed. I like to get to know the company first, and so I can at least know what to bring. What do I have everything I need? And I tend to bring too much and leave it in the car. At least I know that I have some resources. But yeah,
It's a good point too. You don't want to be hauling around extra stuff you don't need to. That's just defeating the purpose.
right. I try to put things in, like I love those little, even the little fold up legal boxes, bank boxes. They're so easy to label on the outside, and I can put different things in them and leave them in the car. And then if something happens, I need blah, blah, blah. Oh, I do need that. And I can run out there and get it. So that's why I have a van, because I have to put all this crap in there and take it from site to site. But anyway, I like it. I like the variety.
We have a comment
Yes.
too, just about keeping a detailed record of incidents. So whether it be shop safety or sexual harassment, that record should include a summary of what happened, who witnessed it, any photos or written records. And that way, if there needs to be a report made later to an appropriate group, you have clear and organized information. And again, writing, like Kristi mentioned, writing those things in a factual way, not necessarily in a emotional way, but just here is what happened, and not necessarily finger pointing in any of those accounts, but just very factually laying the information out.
Well, Laura, thank you so much for even coming up with this whole idea. I never thought it would be an actual topic, but I really enjoyed hearing everyone's ideas and backups. And I think it's a great thing to pursue, to get more safety information in one place, and like a database type of thing. I think it's terrific.
Yeah, right. Because we have our, gun safeties over there with Jim.
Right, right.
And, this is over here and this is over here.
Right, right.
So that when, somebody like me realizes after quarantine that I can't really move like I used to, I know where to go.
Yep.
And unfortunately, I'll throw in a comment here too, but, unfortunately, even though things like this start slow, I'm sure Kristi has seen a lot of, the things that over the years have changed, but, never feel ashamed about being a safety advocate, and don't let people get you down on being that person. You might be the only person at a load-in wearing a hard hat, and like, who cares? Like, sometimes you have to be the example and be that person to start the change. That, there's a lot of old leadership and a lot of organizations that don't want to change, and hopefully that's making a little bit of a wave coming to a new mindset or that kind of thing. But don't ever feel ashamed about advocating for yourself, or again, even just the people that you work with or the people that you manage. Stretching before a load in or a load out, just doing a few small stretches or something for your team. It might seem funny in the beginning, but just saying, hey, we're going to do this. This is happening. And double checking everybody's got their steel toe shoes. Does everybody feel comfortable? Talking through the plan. All of those things are small safety things that when people see examples of it, then hopefully they'll carry that on to their next job. And if we can start to show this to the younger folks, maybe then we'll get a wave that comes up after us.
You mentioning hard hats, I just threw the link in there. Xena Workwear is a company that makes PPE specifically for women, and it's fabulous.
And Kristi, if there are some of us who don't know what PPE stands for, can you let us know?
Sure, it's personal protective equipment. It's all the different kinds of things that we use to protect our body. So it's hard hats, it's high-vis vests, it's respirators, it's gloves, it could be masks. It's anything that we wear personally, hence the personal, to protective, equipment to protect ourselves from other things that are there. And PPE doesn't work if it doesn't fit you properly. I do a lot of work with people in harnesses and fall arrest, and you walk in like, oh, well, we've got a fall arrest harness over there. Well, that's great. It's an H shape, and if I fall, that's gonna smash my tatas. That will not be good. I'll go get mine from my car. I'm like, Deb, I got mine in my car. So yeah, getting PPE that fits properly, that meets the needs of women. We've got it now. Finally, this is something that's been within the last, I'd say 10 years or so, and especially within the last 5. Xena came about 5 years ago to have good-looking steel-toed footwear for women that were going out to inspect a variety of things, and it's just blossomed from that far beyond what she ever thought it would be, I'm sure. And there's also things like Bill Sapsa says, the X shape. I have a technician harness of his that I love. There are pants that are ripstop and for electrical needs and all of the different kinds of special attire that you might have. It's not so much for props. I don't think you guys do many high voltage hookups, but it exists there for women now, finally, in all the ways, shapes, and forms. Also, if there's anything that I can do to help somebody, if you run into a question, my website has a contact us link, and I can give quick answers back easily. And the other name that we haven't mentioned today that we really do need to talk about is Minona Russell, who's a advisor to USA 829. I know she's done stuff with SPAM before. Anything chemical related, she is the go-to maven for all of that. I work a little bit more on the physical building side of things, and somebody comes to me with a chemical question, I go, talk to Minona because she knows it all. But yeah, do call on us. You are not alone. Even if you're a person of one at your place of employment, you are not alone. Phone a friend. We got your back. We're going to help you.
Excellent. Any last questions here, folks? Anything else? I'm going to try to find it after I do our exit, but also one of my former faculty members, William Reynolds, also wrote an incredible theater safety guidebook. Look that up. We'll put that in the notes when this gets put on YouTube, but that's also a really, really incredible resource. And I'm sure he would also be someone who, if you contacted him to ask questions, there's not a lot of theaters out there that are having safety people on staff, but it's again, it's starting. So I think more different organizations are starting to have a staff member or someone who is there for their staff and their students to be that advocate for them. And if there's not, I encourage you to try to advocate for someone like that so that you don't have to be the person who's constantly thinking about all of this. I'm extremely fortunate to work somewhere where we have that person, but I understand that there's a lot of places that don't. So it's so valuable. So try to advocate for that for yourselves.
Yeah. Something we didn't talk about were shoes. I'm always on a constant search for comfortable shoes. And I actually found a company that started making shoes for people with plantar fasciitis and high arches. There are companies out there that say that that's what they do, but they're bullshit. But I found a company that's called Kuru, Kuru, and they make shoes that actually support your heel, have a higher arch, and support soft feet. I mean, soft padding under the ball of your foot. And they are my new go-to shoes. They're not cheap, but they are fabulous. So just thought I'd put a little plug for them out there.
Deb, can you spell that again?
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat here.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Yeah, we're going to save all these links. Thank you.
Oh, I just sent it to you only. Whoops.
Great. Amazing. Any other final questions before we wrap up with our gang here, or any other comments that you all have to throw out there?
I just want to say thank you again to Kristi and Deb and everybody else for adding all of these amazing things. I feel so much less overwhelmed. Overwhelmed in a new way, and that I'm like, oh, okay, now I gotta put it all together. But I mean, look, like just seeing other faces, just seeing Kristi's face say, you're not alone. I mean, it's invaluable. So thank you so much, everybody, for supporting me on this.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, very welcome. Thanks. I really learned a lot.
Yeah, and thank you so much, Kristi, for being here. It's so funny. I like forgot that you weren't a member of SPAM because I see your name pop up in so many things and so many places that I'm reading, and that you're such an incredible advocate out there. So thank you for all of that work that you're doing.
Yeah, thank you.
The amount of times that you have probably written the same Facebook post in like the technical theater at educators group is probably mind-numbing to you, but so valuable. So thank you so much for that hard work that you're doing.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate SPAM because when my one foray into being a props person was when I was in grad school, and there was a lot I didn't know, but Jen, and I can't think of his last name, he was at APT, was a member, and he's like, well, you just need to look at this, and we got information for you, and was a great help. So whenever I have a props question, this is the organization I go to. So I'm very grateful to be able to give back to you guys.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, with that, I think we'll wrap up. So thank you so much all for a very fun and informative evening. So here's where we'd normally tell you to get out your Sharpies and mark your calendars for our next SPMinar, but we're going to be taking the summer off to spend some time with non-webinar pursuits. So we'll see you again with our fall lineup. Stay tuned to your email and our social media sites for more details and schedules, which are coming soon. So if you're interested in joining SPAM and are a working prop manager in a nonprofit theater, opera company, or children's theater, or are an educator who teaches prop classes, please visit our website or click the link in the chat to fill out our membership form. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and links for those will be in the chat and the YouTube notes. SPMinar is produced by the Society of Props Managers, with special thanks to SPAM members Patrick Drone, Freed, Larry Heyman, Ben Homan, Stacy Horn-Harper, Nikki Kulas, Amy Peter, Sarah Pugh, Karen Rabe Vance, Helen Stratakis, and myself. So thank you again so much for watching. Once again, please keep your suggestions for future SPMinars coming. We want to know what you all want to learn about, and we'll see you next time. Prop on, everybody.